The emergency beacon cut through space like a knife through silk, carrying with it the desperate plea of a dying civilization. The Zephyrians had exhausted every option, fought every battle they could manage, and now faced extinction at the hands of the Vorth Collective, a parasitic species that consumed entire worlds for resources. Commander Zura Kelthani stood before the Galactic Council's emergency assembly, her blue-tinged skin pale with exhaustion and her usually pristine uniform torn from recent combat. The Great Hall buzzed with worried whispers from dozens of species, each representative calculating whether they could spare resources for what many considered a lost cause. Honored delegates, Zara began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. My people have defended the Outer Rim for 3 centuries. We've held back invasions, protected trade routes, and maintained peace in our sector. Now we ask for your help in return. The Altarian delegate, a crystalline being that sparkled under the chamber's lights, spoke first. Commander Kelthani, the Vorth have consumed 17 systems in the past year alone. They number in the billions. Even our combined fleets would struggle against such numbers. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The Corvin representative, resembling a giant praying mantis, clicked his mandibles nervously. Our intelligence suggests the Vorth have developed new bioweapons. Ships that can repair themselves, soldiers that feel no pain or fear. How do you fight an enemy that treats death as merely an inconvenience? Zara's shoulders sagged slightly, but she pressed on. Then, we broadcast an open distress call. Reach beyond our known allies. Surely somewhere in the galaxy, there exists a species willing to stand against this threat. The chamber fell silent. The idea of broadcasting into unknown space carried enormous risks. Who might answer such a call? What if something worse than the Vorth heard their plea? Elder Thorn of the Celestial Union, an ancient being whose species had guided galactic politics for millennia, raised a gnarled hand. The risks are worth taking, Zara interrupted, earning shocked gasps from several delegates. Interrupting an elder was considered deeply disrespectful. Forgiveness, honored elder, but my planet has 3 weeks before the Vorth arrive. My children, my people, they have 3 weeks to live unless we try everything. The voting proceeded in tense silence. When the final tally was announced, the motion passed by a single vote. The galaxy would send its first open distress call into the unknown regions of space. 3 days later, the massive transmitter array on Nexus Station powered up to full capacity. The signal would carry across countless light years, translated into mathematical concepts that any intelligent species could understand. It spoke of invasion, of innocent lives at stake, of the need for military assistance against an overwhelming force. As the signal raced through space, life continued on a small blue planet in a relatively quiet arm of the galaxy. The inhabitants called their world Earth, and they had been monitoring radio signals from space for decades, hoping to make contact with alien life. Dr. Sarah Chun sat in the SETI facility in Chile, her coffee growing cold as she stared at the computer screen. The signal was unlike anything they had ever received. Complex, clearly artificial, and unmistakably a message from an intelligent source. Marcus, get over here, she called to her colleague. You need to see this. Dr. Marcus Webb hurried over, his excitement building as he studied the readouts. This is incredible, Sarah. It's not just a signal, it's a mathematical construct. They're using prime numbers, geometric sequences, it's definitely communication. Working through the night, the SETI team began decoding the message. What they discovered sent shockwaves through every government and military organization on Earth. The signal wasn't just proof of alien life. It was a desperate call for help from beings facing extinction. Within hours, the message reached the highest levels of world governments. Emergency sessions convened in the United Nations, the Pentagon, and military headquarters across the globe. The debate was intense and immediate. General Patricia Morrison stood before the Joint Chiefs of Staff, her expression grim. The signal contained star charts, tactical information about this Vorth Collective, and detailed specifications about their military capabilities. If this is genuine, these aliens are facing an enemy that makes our worst historical conflicts look like children's games. And you're suggesting we respond? Admiral James Fletcher asked, his weathered face skeptical. We barely have working spacecraft, Patricia. Our most advanced military technology runs on chemical rockets and conventional weapons. That's exactly why we should respond," came an unexpected voice from the back of the room. Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, the president's science advisor, stepped forward. "Think about what makes humanity unique. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and natural disasters that should have destroyed us. We're the species that looked at the impossible and said, 'Watch us do it anyway.'" General Morrison nodded slowly. "Our technology might be primitive by galactic standards, but our tactical thinking, our ability to adapt and improvise, that could be exactly what they need." The debates continued for days. Religious leaders questioned humanity's role in cosmic affairs. Scientists worried about revealing Earth's location to potentially hostile forces. Military strategists studied the alien intelligence, looking for ways their limited technology could make a difference. But, in the end, the decision came down to something fundamental about human nature: the inability to stand by while others suffered, especially when there was even the smallest chance of helping. President Maria Santos addressed the world from the Oval Office. Her words carried to every nation and every language. "My fellow citizens of Earth, today we learned that we are not alone in the universe. We have received a call for help from beings facing extinction at the hands of a merciless enemy. Some say we should remain hidden, protect ourselves, avoid this cosmic conflict. But that is not who we are as a species." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Throughout history, humanity has answered the call when others needed help. We have stood against tyranny, oppression, and genocide. Today, that call comes from the stars themselves. Today, we answer as one people, one species, one voice saying that no thinking being should face extinction alone." The response was swift and unprecedented. Every space agency, every military force, every scientific institution on Earth began coordinating the largest joint operation in human history. They had weeks to prepare, but humanity had always done its best work under impossible deadlines. Commander Zhang Wei of the Chinese Space Force found himself working alongside former rivals from NASA, the European Space Agency, and private companies like SpaceX. "We're going to need every ship we can manage," he told the assembled team. "Commercial satellites, military reconnaissance craft, even experimental prototypes." "What about weapons?" asked Colonel Sarah Bradley from the UK Space Command. "The intelligence suggests energy shields, self-repairing armor, biological weapons. Our kinetic weapons and explosives won't make much difference against technology like that." Dr. Yuki Tanaka from Japan's Space Research Program looked up from her tablet. "Maybe they don't need to. The enemy intelligence suggests they're designed to fight similar technologies, energy weapons, advanced materials, predictable tactics. They might not be prepared for chemical explosives, ballistic weapons, or unconventional strategies." The room buzzed with new energy. Humanity's technological limitations might actually be advantages against an enemy that had adapted to fight more advanced civilizations. Over the following weeks, an enormous effort took shape. Manufacturing plants that normally produced cars began making spacecraft components. Military bases worldwide became training centers for improvised space combat. Scientists worked around the clock to modify existing technology for use in the vacuum of space. The plan was audacious in its simplicity. Earth would launch everything they had: every spacecraft, every satellite, every piece of technology that could be weaponized or used tactically. They would arrive at the Zephyrian system not as an advanced fleet, but as something the Vorth had never encountered: a swarm of primitive but determined fighters using tactics and technology the enemy couldn't predict. Dr. Chun, the woman who had first detected the signal, found herself assigned to the communication team. Their job was to coordinate with the Zephyrian forces and provide real-time tactical support using humanity's greatest strength: the ability to think creatively under pressure. As launch day approached, the world held its breath. Humanity was about to announce itself to the galaxy not as explorers or diplomats, but as warriors answering a call for help. They had no idea if their technology would work, if they could survive the journey, or if they would arrive in time to make a difference. But they were going anyway, because that's what humans did. They answered the call, no matter how impossible the odds, no matter how slim the chances of success. The Zephyrians had asked for help, and humanity would provide it, even if it meant traveling across the galaxy with nothing but courage and determination. The first ships launched on a Tuesday morning, their chemical rockets leaving Earth's atmosphere in a display of fire and determination that could be seen for hundreds of miles. Behind them, more ships prepared for launch, and, across the galaxy, an ancient enemy prepared to face something they had never encountered before. Humans were coming to help, and they had no intention of giving up without a fight. The Vorth Advance Fleet moved through space like a living shadow, their bioships pulsing with dark energy as they approached the Zephyrian home system. General Kethvar, the Vorth's supreme commander, studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. 17 systems had fallen to their forces, each conquest adding to their collective strength. Status report, Kethvar commanded, his voice a wet hiss through the organic communication system that linked all Vorth vessels. His body, a grotesque fusion of insect and machine, clicked as he moved across the bridge of his flagship. The Zephyrian outer defenses have fallen, reported his tactical coordinator. Their remaining forces have retreated to their home world. Our intelligence suggests they have perhaps 40 ships remaining, mostly damaged from previous engagements. Kethvar's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his species. 40 ships against our 2,000. How did such a weak species survive this long? The question was rhetorical. The Vorth had encountered similar situations dozens of times before. Civilizations that relied on static defenses, conventional tactics, and outdated technology never lasted long once the collective turned its attention to them. Meanwhile, on Zephyria Prime, Commander Zura Kelthani stood in the planet's Defense Command Center, watching as her people prepared for what everyone believed would be their final battle. The beautiful blue oceans and green continents visible through the facility's windows might soon be consumed by the Vorth bioplague, leaving nothing but a dead rock orbiting their sun. "Ma'am," came a voice from the communication station. "We're receiving a transmission on the emergency frequency." "It's strange." Zara hurried over, hoping against hope that one of the Galactic Council species had reconsidered and sent assistance. Instead, she found herself staring at a completely unfamiliar signal pattern. "Can you decode it?" she asked the technician, a young male named Tvor whose blue skin was pale with exhaustion. "Working on it now, Commander. The mathematical structure is primitive but clever. They're using basic geometric principles, but applying them in ways I've never seen." As the translation program worked, Zara found herself holding her breath. When the message finally appeared on screen, she read it 3 times before believing what she saw. "This is Admiral Patricia Morrison of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress call and are en route to assist. Our fleet will arrive in your system in approximately 18 hours. Please provide tactical information about enemy positions and capabilities." "Earth stands with Zephyria." The command center fell silent. Earth? None of them had heard of such a species. The signal's origin point came from a region of space the Galactic Council considered uninhabited. "Commander," Tvor said quietly, "there's more. They're transmitting what appears to be technical specifications for their weapons and ships. The technology is unusual." Zara studied the data, her confusion growing. The human ships appeared to use chemical propulsion systems, something her people had abandoned centuries ago. Their weapons were kinetic projectiles and chemical explosives, technology so primitive that most species would consider it barely above throwing rocks. Yet something about the tactical assessments intrigued her. The humans had clearly studied the Vorth capabilities and identified potential weaknesses that Zara's own strategists had missed. Their battle plans showed a level of creative thinking that impressed her despite their technological limitations. "Send them everything we have on the Vorth," she ordered. "Ship configurations, weapon types, tactical preferences, biological capabilities. If they're brave enough to come help us with technology like that, they deserve every advantage we can give them." Light years away, the human fleet continued its desperate journey toward the Zephyrian system. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the converted space station that served as their flagship, watching as the hodgepodge collection of spacecraft maintained formation around them. The fleet looked like something from humanity's historical imagination rather than a modern military force. Converted commercial satellites bristled with improvised weapons. Military reconnaissance drones had been modified with explosive charges and remote guidance systems. Even civilian spacecraft had been pressed into service, their cargo holds filled with everything from traditional missiles to exotic experimental weapons that scientists had thrown together in the weeks since receiving the alien distress call. Admiral, called Commander Jake Harrison, her tactical officer. We're receiving detailed intelligence from the Zephyrians. Their analysis of Vorth capabilities is impressive. Morrison studied the incoming data, her expression growing more serious by the minute. The Vorth bioships were indeed formidable opponents. Self-repairing hulls, energy-based weapons, swarm tactics that had overwhelmed every opponent they faced. "What do you think, Jake?" she asked. "Can we make this work?" Harrison was quiet for a moment, then smiled grimly. "Admiral, every military academy teaches the same basic principle. When facing a superior enemy, don't fight their fight. Make them fight yours." The Vorth are designed to combat advanced energy weapons and sophisticated defensive systems. They've never faced an enemy that throws chemical explosives and uses ramming attacks. The Admiral nodded. Humanity's weakness might indeed be their strength. The Vorth had evolved their tactics to counter the technologies used by advanced galactic civilizations. They had no experience fighting an enemy that relied on crude but effective weapons delivered through unconventional strategies. Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, who had insisted on joining the mission despite its dangers, appeared at Morrison's side with a tablet full of calculations. "Admiral, I've been working with the Zephyrian tactical data. Look at this." She highlighted several sections of the enemy intelligence. The Vorth bioships repaired damage by redirecting organic material from less critical systems. Their hulls can heal from energy weapon damage by absorbing the energy and converting it to biological matter. But they've never encountered kinetic impacts from solid projectiles moving at high velocity. Morrison leaned forward, interested. Meaning their self-repair systems might not know how to handle a chunk of metal punching through their hull at several thousand meters per second. And their energy absorption capabilities are useless against chemical explosives that create physical shock waves rather than energy discharges. The implications were staggering. Humanity's primitive technology might actually be more effective against the Vorth than the advanced weapons used by galactic civilizations. Back in the Vorth fleet, General Kethvar received an intelligence report that made him pause in his preparations for the final assault on Zephyria Prime. "What do you mean, unknown contacts?" he demanded. The intelligence officer, a spindly creature with multiple eyes arranged around its elongated skull, checked its readings again. "Sir, our long-range sensors detect approximately 300 objects approaching the system. The energy signatures are unusual. Primitive chemical propulsion, minimal shielding, what appears to be solid metal construction rather than bioorganic materials." Kethvar's mandibles clicked in annoyance. "Scavengers, then? Some opportunistic species hoping to claim salvage after we finish with the Zephyrians. Deploy a screening force to deal with them once we've completed our primary objective." The intelligence officer hesitated. "Sir, there's something else. The objects are moving in a coordinated formation and broadcasting military identification codes. This appears to be an actual fleet rather than scavengers." For the first time in the campaign, Kethvar felt a flicker of uncertainty. The Vorth had conquered 17 systems by adapting their tactics to counter every weapon and strategy used by galactic civilizations. Their bioships were living weapons, capable of healing damage and adapting to new threats in real time. What could a primitive species possibly bring to a battle at this level? "Increase long-range scanning," he ordered. "I want to know everything about these newcomers before they reach weapons range." As the human fleet approached the Zephyrian system, both sides prepared for a battle that would determine the fate of an entire civilization. The Vorth, confident in their technological superiority and proven tactics, saw the approaching humans as nothing more than a minor inconvenience to be swept aside. The Zephyrians, desperate and facing extinction, dared to hope that these unknown allies might somehow make a difference in the coming battle. And humanity, traveling across the galaxy with nothing but determination and improvised weapons, prepared to prove that sometimes the best way to win a fight is to change the rules entirely. Admiral Morrison gathered her senior officers in the flagship's converted conference room. The The space had originally been designed as a supply storage area, but now served as the command center for humanity's first interstellar military operation. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, we're about to attempt something that has never been tried in galactic history. We're going to take on a technologically superior enemy using weapons and tactics they've never encountered. Our advantage isn't our technology, it's our unpredictability. Captain Sarah Chun, commanding the converted satellite squadron, raised her hand. Admiral, the Zephyrian data suggests the Vorth use swarm tactics with coordinated energy attacks. How do we counter something like that? Morrison smiled grimly. We don't counter it, Sarah. We ignore it entirely. While they're expecting us to engage in traditional space combat, we're going to do something different. We're going to introduce them to human warfare. She activated a holographic display showing the planned battle formation. The Vorth have never faced an enemy that uses kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, and suicide tactics. They've never fought a species that considers ramming an enemy ship to be a legitimate military strategy. The room fell quiet as the implications sank in. They weren't just going to fight the Vorth. They were going to shock them with tactics so primitive and brutal that the enemy wouldn't know how to respond. Colonel Bradley from the UK Space Command nodded slowly. It's insane enough that it might actually work. As the human fleet continued its approach, final preparations began across all vessels. Weapons were armed, targeting systems calibrated, and crews prepared for what might be humanity's first and last appearance on the galactic stage. The Vorth advanced scouts detected the human fleet 6 hours before they reached the system perimeter. The readings confused the bioship sensors, which were designed to analyze energy patterns and biological signatures rather than simple metal constructs filled with chemical explosives. General Kethvar studied the incoming data with growing irritation. The primitive fleet showed no signs of advanced weaponry or defensive systems. Their ships appeared to be constructed from refined metals and ceramic materials, substances the Vorth bioships could consume and convert to biological matter within hours of contact. Deploy the forward screening force, he commanded. 100 bioships should be sufficient to deal with this primitive rabble. Once they're eliminated, we'll proceed with the assault on Zephyria Prime. What neither the Vorth nor the Zephyrians realized was that humanity was about to demonstrate the galaxy's most dangerous characteristic: the ability to turn any situation into a weapon. Earth's children were coming to war, and they had no intention of fighting fair. The first contact between human and Vorth forces occurred at the edge of the Zephyrian system, in the cold darkness between planets where ancient debris from stellar formation still drifted in lazy orbits around the distant sun. Captain Maria Santos commanded the lead human squadron, 12 converted commercial satellites that had been hastily fitted with guidance systems and explosive charges. Her tactical display showed the approaching Vorth screening force, 100 bioships moving in perfect formation, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that served as both communication and intimidation. This is Hammer 1 to all units, Santos broadcast on the human fleet frequency. Remember, we're not trying to win a traditional space battle. We're trying to confuse them long enough for the main fleet to get in close. The Vorth bioships opened fire first, sending streams of concentrated energy toward the human vessels. The beams should have vaporized the primitive spacecraft instantly, but something unexpected happened. The humans scattered like startled birds, their unpredictable movement patterns making it nearly impossible to achieve target lock. "What are they doing?" demanded Subcommander Vrex from his position on the Vorth screening fleet's command vessel. "Their evasion patterns make no tactical sense." His tactical analyst, a multi-limbed creature with enhanced processing capabilities, studied the human movements with growing confusion. "Sir, they appear to be using random movement algorithms rather than calculated evasion patterns. Our targeting systems are designed to predict logical defensive maneuvers." What the Vorth didn't understand was that the human ships were being piloted by volunteers who had trained on video games rather than military simulators. Fighter pilots, commercial drone operators, and even civilian gamers had been pressed into service, and their unconventional tactics reflected years of experience with entertainment software rather than formal military doctrine. Santos watched as the Vorth energy beams missed their targets repeatedly, the alien weapons systems struggling to lock onto ships that moved with human intuition rather than computer logic. All units, initiate Plan Crazy Ivan. The human ships suddenly reversed course, accelerating directly toward the Vorth formation instead of away from it. The move was so tactically unsound that the Vorth targeting computers briefly shut down, unable to process the idea that an enemy would willingly enter close-range combat when outgunned 112. Sir, the Vorth analyst reported with something approaching panic. They're charging us. All of them. This doesn't match any known tactical doctrine in our databases. Subcommander Vrex felt the first stirring of unease he had experienced in decades of combat. Impossible. No species would commit suicide without cause. This must be some kind of deception. But it wasn't deception. It was something far more dangerous to the Vorth way of thinking. It was human desperation combined with human ingenuity, wrapped in a tactical approach that treated impossible odds as merely another problem to solve. The first human ship to reach the Vorth formation was a converted weather satellite piloted by former commercial drone operator Jake Williams. His vessel, barely the size of a Vorth fighter craft, slammed into the bio ship screening the left flank of their formation and exploded in a brilliant flash of chemical fire. The explosion sent shockwaves through both fleets. The Vorth bio ship, designed to absorb and redirect energy-based attacks, had no defense against the primitive chemical blast that tore through its organic hull like a hot knife through butter. Worse, the explosion created debris that spread in all directions, striking nearby bioships with chunks of metal and ceramic moving at lethal velocities. Report. Vrex demanded as damage assessments flooded his command station. Direct collision, sir. The primitive vessel appears to have been packed with chemical explosives. The resulting detonation bypassed our energy absorption capabilities entirely and caused catastrophic hull damage to Ship 779. Before Vrex could respond, 2 more human ships reached his formation. These didn't explode on impact. Instead, they deployed clouds of what appeared to be simple metal projectiles, each one no larger than a human fist but traveling at incredible velocity thanks to chemical propulsion systems. The effect was devastating. The Vorth bioships, accustomed to energy weapons that could be absorbed or deflected, had no defense against solid objects that simply punched through their hulls and continued traveling until they hit something vital. Impossible, Vrex whispered as he watched his screening force take damage that shouldn't have been possible. How can primitive kinetic weapons penetrate our hull defenses? The answer lay in the fundamental differences between human and galactic military thinking. Advanced civilizations had moved beyond kinetic weapons centuries ago, developing energy-based systems that were more efficient and easier to control. The Vorth had evolved specifically to counter these advanced weapons, creating bioships that could absorb energy and convert it to useful biological matter. But no one had prepared them for an enemy that would fill containers with metal screws and bolts, accelerate them to tremendous velocity using chemical explosives, and spray them across space like the galaxy's deadliest shotgun blast. Captain Santos watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction as the Vorth formation began to break apart. This is Hammer 1 to Admiral Morrison. Screening force is engaged. They're not adapting to our tactics as quickly as expected. Admiral Morrison received the report aboard her flagship as the main human fleet approached the inner system. The converted space station had been equipped with every weapon humanity could devise in their brief preparation time. Missile batteries loaded with nuclear warheads, railguns firing depleted uranium projectiles, and even experimental plasma cannons that probably had a 50% chance of exploding when fired. Excellent work, Captain, Morrison replied. All units, prepare for main engagement. Remember, we're not trying to match their firepower. We're trying to introduce so much chaos into their tactical calculations that their coordination breaks down. The plan was audacious in its simplicity. Human military doctrine, developed through centuries of warfare on Earth, emphasized adaptability, surprise, and the willingness to use any available resource as a weapon. The Vorth, for all their technological superiority, were creatures of biological programming and established tactical doctrine. Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, monitoring the battle from the flagship's converted laboratory, noticed something interesting in the Vorth communication patterns. "Admiral," she called out, "their bioship coordination is failing. Look at these signal patterns." Morrison studied the data her science advisor highlighted. The Vorth fleet communications showed increasing disorder as their tactical computers struggled to process human behavior that didn't match any known patterns. "It's like they're having a collective nervous breakdown," Hartwell continued. "Their entire tactical system is based on predictable enemy behavior. When we do something that doesn't fit their parameters, their coordination protocols start failing." This observation would prove to be the key to the entire battle. The Vorth Collective was exactly that, a collective intelligence that relied on shared tactical processing and coordinated response patterns. Individual bioships were formidable, but their true strength came from their ability to function as a single, unified organism. Humanity's chaotic, unpredictable tactics were like a computer virus in the Vorth collective consciousness. Each unexpected action created processing errors that cascaded through their fleet coordination systems. Meanwhile, in the Zephyrian Defense Command Center, Commander Zura Kelthani watched the battle unfold with amazement. Her tactical displays showed the human fleet engaging the Vorth advance force with weapons and strategies that defied every principle of modern space combat. "Ma'am," reported her communication officer, "the humans are requesting tactical data on Vorth fleet composition and command structure. They want to know which ships control fleet coordination." Zara didn't hesitate. "Send them everything we have. If these brave fools are willing to fight the Vorth with chemical explosives and metal projectiles, they deserve every piece of intelligence we can provide." The Zephyrian data reached the human fleet just as Admiral Morrison was preparing to engage the main Vorth force. The information revealed that Vorth fleets operated through a hierarchical command structure, with specialized command bioships controlling tactical coordination for groups of smaller vessels. "Jake," Morrison called to her tactical officer, "can we identify these command ships in the enemy formation?" Commander Harrison studied the incoming intelligence, cross-referencing it with their own sensor data. "Yes, ma'am. They're larger than the standard bioships and positioned at key points throughout their formation. If we could take out their command vessels, their coordination would collapse," Morrison finished. "Exactly what we need. Signal all units. Priority targets are the Vorth command ships. I don't care what it takes to reach them." What followed was unlike any space battle in galactic history. Instead of the elegant, long-range energy exchanges that characterized modern warfare, the human fleet turned the engagement into something resembling a bar fight in zero gravity. Human ships accelerated past safe operational limits, their crews enduring dangerous G-forces to close distance with the enemy. They fired weapons at point-blank range, used debris as improvised projectiles, and performed ramming attacks that would have been considered suicidal by any rational military doctrine. Commander Zhang Wei, leading a squadron of converted military satellites, found himself closing with a Vorth command bioship that was easily 10 times the size of his vessel. "This is Dragon Leader to all units. I'm going for the big one." "Zhang, that's suicide," came the response from his wingman. Zhang's reply was pure human stubbornness. "Maybe, but if this thing is coordinating their left flank, taking it out might save the whole battle. Besides, when did humans ever let impossible odds stop us?" The converted satellite accelerated toward the massive bioship, dodging energy beams and biological projectiles as it closed the distance. At the last moment, Zhang ejected in a primitive escape pod while his ship, packed with every explosive humans had managed to fit inside its hull, slammed into the command vessel's central coordination cluster. The explosion was visible from across the star system, a brilliant flash of chemical fire and nuclear energy that tore through the bioship's organic architecture like lightning through a tree. The command vessel didn't just die. It disintegrated, taking with it the tactical coordination for nearly 200 Vorth fighters. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human crews discovered that their primitive weapons were devastatingly effective against an enemy designed to fight a completely different kind of war. The Vorth collective consciousness, for the first time in its existence, experienced something approaching fear. These newcomers fought with tactics that made no logical sense, used weapons that bypassed every defensive system in the Vorth arsenal, and seemed to regard their own survival as secondary to inflicting damage on the enemy. General Kethvar, commanding the main Vorth fleet from his flagship, watched his forces take damage at an unprecedented rate. "What are they?" he demanded from his tactical staff. "What species fights like this?" But none of his advisors had an answer. In their databases covering thousands of galactic civilizations, there was no record of any species that combined such primitive technology with such effective tactical innovation. Unknown to the Vorth, they were experiencing humanity's greatest strength, the ability to adapt, improvise, and overcome obstacles through sheer determination and creative thinking. Earth's children had arrived at their first galactic war, and they were rewriting the rules of engagement with every passing minute. The battle for Zephyria Prime entered its second phase as Admiral Morrison's main fleet engaged the core of the Vorth invasion force. The space around the planet became a chaotic swirl of energy beams, chemical explosions, and debris as two completely different philosophies of warfare collided in the darkness between worlds. General Kethvar, his confidence shaken by the unexpected losses to his screening forces, ordered his remaining bioships into a defensive formation around the planet. The massive command vessel that served as his flagship pulsed with angry bioluminescence as he struggled to understand how primitive chemical weapons could penetrate defenses designed to withstand the most advanced energy attacks in the galaxy. "Analysis complete," General reported his chief tactical coordinator, a creature whose enhanced nervous system allowed it to process data from thousands of sources simultaneously. "The enemy weapons appear to function through direct physical impact rather than energy transfer. Our bioarmor cannot absorb or redirect kinetic force the way it handles energy-based attacks." Kethvar's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Then adapt. Thicken the hull plating, redirect biological resources to create denser armor, modify our defensive systems to handle solid projectiles." "Sir, adaptation requires time we may not have. The enemy is employing tactics that prevent our ships from maintaining the coordination necessary for biological modification. Every time our vessels attempt to begin adaptive reconstruction, they come under direct attack from multiple vectors." This was the crucial insight that neither the Vorth nor the galactic civilizations they had conquered understood about human warfare. Earth's military doctrine had evolved through constant conflict with opponents who shared similar technological capabilities. Success depended not on superior weapons, but on superior tactics, timing, and the ability to deny the enemy time to adapt or respond. Captain Sarah Chun, commanding a squadron of converted commercial satellites, demonstrated this principle as she led her ships in a series of hit-and-run attacks against the Vorth's left flank. Her vessels would accelerate to maximum velocity, fire volleys of kinetic projectiles and chemical explosives at the enemy formation, then scatter in random directions before the bioships could coordinate a response. "This is Razor Squadron to Admiral Morrison," Chen reported as her ships regrouped behind the cover of Zephyria's largest moon. "Enemy formation is maintaining defensive posture, but their coordination is degrading. Every time they try to reorganize, we hit them again before they can complete the process." Morrison smiled grimly as she received the report. The human fleet was applying one of the oldest principles of Earth military doctrine: keep the enemy off balance, never give them time to adapt, and force them to fight on your terms rather than their own. "Excellent work, Captain. Maintain pressure on their flanks while we prepare for the main assault." Aboard the flagship, Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell continued her analysis of Vorth tactical patterns, searching for weaknesses that could be exploited by humanity's unconventional approach to warfare. What she discovered would change the course of the entire battle. "Admiral," she called out, excitement clear in her voice, "I think I've found their critical vulnerability. Look at these communication patterns." Morrison studied the data Hartwell had compiled. The Vorth bioships communicated through complex biological signals that created a shared tactical consciousness across their entire fleet. Individual ships were formidable, but their true strength came from their ability to function as a single, unified organism. "See here," Hartwell continued, pointing to specific signal patterns on her displays. "When we disrupt their coordination through unpredictable attacks, their communication network becomes overloaded trying to process and respond to our tactics. If we could create enough simultaneous chaos across their fleet, their collective consciousness would suffer a complete breakdown. Morrison finished, understanding immediately. Like overloading a computer network with too much data. The implications were staggering. Instead of trying to destroy the Vorth fleet ship by ship, they could potentially defeat the entire force by targeting their greatest strength, their coordinated unity. Morrison activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All units, this is Admiral Morrison. New tactical priority, maximum chaos deployment. I want every ship to engage the enemy simultaneously using completely different attack patterns. Don't coordinate with other vessels, don't follow standard tactical doctrine, and don't give the enemy any way to predict your next move. The response from the human fleet was immediate and devastating. Centuries of human military innovation suddenly found expression in the depths of space as crews improvised weapons and tactics that defied every principle of modern warfare. Commander Jake Harrison, piloting a converted research probe, armed his vessel with mining charges designed for asteroid excavation and launched a direct assault on a cluster of Vorth bioships. The explosives, intended to crack apart solid rock, proved horrifyingly effective against organic armor designed to absorb energy rather than survive concussive blasts. Captain Lisa Rodriguez, commanding a modified communications satellite, discovered that her ship's transmission array could be overloaded to create a focused electromagnetic pulse. The resulting discharge disabled the bioelectrical systems of nearby Vorth vessels, leaving them drifting helplessly in space like massive biological corpses. Colonel Bradley from the UK Space Command took an even more audacious approach, using her ship's emergency life support system as a weapon. She vented the vessel's atmosphere directly at a Vorth bioship, creating a cloud of frozen oxygen and nitrogen that acted like microscopic bullets when the enemy vessel attempted to maneuver through it. The effect on the Vorth collective consciousness was exactly what Dr. Hartwell had predicted. Their communication network, evolved to coordinate responses to predictable threats, began to collapse under the sheer impossibility of processing human tactical innovation. General, reported the Vorth tactical coordinator, his voice showing strain that shouldn't have been possible for a biologically enhanced creature. The enemy is employing 73 different attack patterns simultaneously. Our collective processing systems cannot generate coordinated responses to this level of tactical variance. Kethvar felt something his species had never evolved to handle, genuine fear. Then, stop trying to coordinate. Order all ships to engage independently using local tactical judgment. But this command revealed the fundamental weakness of the Vorth collective. Individual bioships, separated from their shared consciousness, lacked the independent decision-making capabilities necessary for effective combat. They had been bred for coordination and collective action, not independent thought. As the Vorth formation began to fragment, Admiral Morrison ordered the final phase of the human assault. All units, concentrate fire on their command vessel. If we can take out their central coordination node, this battle is over. The attack that followed would become legend in both human and galactic history. 300 human spacecraft, ranging from military vessels to converted civilian satellites, converged on General Kethvar's flagship from every possible angle. The Vorth command ship was a massive bioconstruct, easily the size of a human city and bristling with defensive systems that could have destroyed any conventional fleet. Its organic armor had been enhanced with metals absorbed from conquered worlds, and its weapon systems could generate enough energy to crack a planet's crust. But none of these defenses had been designed to handle an enemy that approached warfare as a creative exercise rather than a technical problem. The first wave of human ships deployed clouds of metallic chaff, simple strips of aluminum originally designed to confuse radar systems. In space, however, the chaff created a reflective barrier that scattered the bioship's energy weapons in random directions, making it impossible for the massive vessel to target its attackers effectively. The second wave consisted of ships that had been loaded with every chemical explosive humanity could manufacture in 3 weeks of desperate preparation. Nuclear warheads, chemical bombs, improvised devices created from mining equipment. All of it was thrown at the Vorth flagship in a display of destructive creativity that left the enemy's tactical computers completely unable to formulate a response. But the decisive blow came from an unexpected source. Dr. Chun, the SETI researcher who had first detected the alien distress signal, had insisted on joining the mission aboard a converted space telescope. Her vessel carried no weapons except for one crucial piece of equipment, a high-powered radio transmitter designed for deep space communication. As the human assault reached its climax, Chen aimed her transmitter directly at the Vorth flagship and began broadcasting on the exact frequency used by the bioships for their collective communication network. But instead of tactical data, she transmitted something completely different. The entire collected works of human music, literature, and art, compressed into a massive data stream and fired directly into the Vorth collective consciousness. The effect was catastrophic. The bioship network, evolved to process tactical information and coordination data, had no framework for understanding human creativity. The sudden influx of music, poetry, paintings, and novels created a cascade failure in their collective processing systems that spread throughout the entire fleet. One by one, Vorth bioships began to drift powerlessly in space as their crews struggled with sensory overload from exposure to human artistic expression. The species that had conquered 17 star systems found itself completely paralyzed by an enemy weapon they had never imagined possible, the creative output of an entire civilization. General Kethvar, his own consciousness reeling from the bizarre assault, managed one final desperate command. All ships retreat. Full withdrawal from this system. But it was too late. The Vorth fleet, reduced to less than half its original strength and completely unable to coordinate defensive actions, began a chaotic retreat toward the edge of the star system. Many of their bioships, still struggling with the aftereffects of Dr. Chen's cultural bombardment, collided with each other in their haste to escape the impossible enemy they had encountered. Admiral Morrison watched the enemy withdrawal with a mixture of amazement and pride. Humanity had achieved the impossible. They had defeated a technologically superior enemy through sheer tactical innovation and creative thinking. But the victory came at a cost. Nearly 40% of the human fleet had been destroyed or severely damaged in the battle. Brave men and women had sacrificed their lives to prove that primitive technology guided by human ingenuity could overcome any odds. As the last Vorth ships disappeared into hyperspace, Morrison opened a communication channel to the Zephyrian Command Center on the planet below. This is Admiral Morrison to Commander Kelthani. The enemy fleet has been defeated and is in full retreat. Zephyria Prime is secure. The response from the planet was a cacophony of joy, relief, and amazement as an entire civilization realized they had been saved by allies they had never imagined could exist. But the real significance of the battle was already spreading throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Council, monitoring the engagement from their distant chambers, had witnessed something that would change interstellar politics forever. A previously unknown species had answered a call for help with nothing but primitive weapons and unshakable determination, then proceeded to defeat the most feared military force in galactic history through tactics so innovative that no existing database contained any reference to similar strategies. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy, and the announcement had been written in fire and victory across the space around Zephyria Prime. 3 months after the Battle of Zephyria Prime, the Galactic Council convened in an emergency session unlike any in their recorded history. The Great Chamber buzzed with voices from dozens of species as delegates struggled to process the implications of what they had witnessed. Elder Thorn of the Celestial Union called the assembly to order, his ancient voice carrying across the vast hall. Honored delegates, we gather to discuss the emergence of a new species that has fundamentally altered the balance of power in our galaxy. The humans of Earth have accomplished what our combined fleets could not. They have defeated the Vorth Collective in open battle. The silence that followed was profound. For centuries, the Galactic Council had operated under the assumption that technological advancement was the primary determinant of military superiority. The idea that a primitive species could achieve victory through tactical innovation rather than advanced weaponry challenged everything they believed about interstellar warfare. The Altarian delegate, its crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lights in complex patterns, spoke first. The human victory is undeniable, but the methods they employed raised disturbing questions. Their willingness to sacrifice their own vessels, their use of unpredictable tactics, their apparent disregard for established rules of engagement. This suggests a species that approaches warfare very differently than any we have encountered. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Many delegates had reviewed the battle recordings with growing unease. Human tactics violated every principle of civilized warfare that had been established over millennia of galactic conflict. But Commander Zara Kelthani, invited to address the council as a witness to the battle, rose from her position in the gallery. Honored delegates, you speak of the humans' methods as if they were somehow uncivilized. But I watched these beings travel across the galaxy to help strangers they had never met, facing an enemy that had terrorized 17 star systems. They asked for nothing in return except the chance to stand against evil. Her words carried the weight of someone who had witnessed both the horror of Vorth occupation and the miracle of human intervention. Their tactics may be unconventional, but their courage is absolute. They saved my people when no one else would even try. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity was experiencing its own crisis of understanding. The successful mission to Zephyria had proven that humans could operate in space and engage in interstellar warfare, but it had also revealed how primitive Earth technology truly was compared to galactic standards. President Maria Santos stood before a joint session of Congress, delivering a report that would reshape human civilization. The mission to Zephyria has succeeded beyond our wildest expectations, but it has also shown us how much we have to learn. Our brave volunteers defeated an enemy that had conquered star systems using weapons that the galactic community considers obsolete. She paused, letting the implications sink in. This tells us two things. First, human ingenuity and determination can overcome seemingly impossible odds. Second, we must rapidly advance our technology if we want to take our place among the stars. The months following the battle saw an unprecedented period of global cooperation on Earth. Every nation contributed resources to a crash program of technological development guided by data captured from Vorth ships and intelligence provided by grateful Zephyrian allies. Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, now serving as director of Earth's new Galactic Technology Integration Project, worked 18-hour days analyzing alien technologies and developing human equivalents. The fascinating thing, she explained to her research team, is that our victory at Zephyria wasn't despite our primitive technology, it was because of it. The galaxy has become so dependent on energy-based weapons and predictable tactics that they've forgotten the effectiveness of kinetic force and creative thinking. This observation would prove crucial as Earth began developing its first generation of true interstellar technology. Instead of simply copying alien designs, human engineers combined galactic principles with Earth innovations, creating hybrid systems that reflected humanity's unique approach to problem-solving. The first Earth-built starship to use galactic technology launched 6 months after Zephyria. The vessel, christened the Unconventional, carried Admiral Morrison and a diplomatic team to the Galactic Council chambers for humanity's first official contact with galactic civilization. The ship itself exemplified human engineering philosophy. While it incorporated alien technologies like faster-than-light travel and energy weapons, it also carried kinetic projectile systems, chemical explosives, and what the design team cheerfully called Murphy's Revenge, backup systems designed to function when everything else failed. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge as they approached the council station, marveling at the massive structure that housed representatives from hundreds of worlds. "It's beautiful," she commented to Captain Harrison, who had survived the battle at Zephyria and now served as her tactical officer. "It's also heavily defended," Harrison replied, studying his sensor readings. "Energy shields, automated defensive platforms, enough firepower to destroy a fleet. Good thing we're coming in peace." Morrison smiled. "Jake, after what we did at Zephyria, I think they're more worried about us than we are about them." The human delegation's arrival at the council station created a sensation. News of their victory had spread throughout galactic civilization, but Many species had assumed that humans were simply another technologically advanced race using exotic weapons. Seeing the Earth representatives arrive in a ship that combined alien technology with obviously primitive backup systems was a shock to many observers. Elder Thorne greeted Morrison personally at the docking bay, an honor rarely accorded to new species. "Admiral Morrison," he said, his ancient voice carrying genuine respect, "the Celestial Union welcomes Earth to the galactic community. Your actions at Zephyria have earned humanity a place among the stars." "Thank you, Elder Thorne," Morrison replied. "We hope to prove worthy of that place." The formal presentation to the full council took place the following day. Morrison stood before delegates representing hundreds of worlds, knowing that her words would determine humanity's future role in galactic affairs. "Honored delegates," she began, "we come before you not as conquerors or suppliants, but as neighbors willing to stand with you against threats to peace and freedom. The battle at Zephyria was won not because humans are superior warriors, but because we approach problems differently than you might expect." She activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. "My species has survived ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, and countless wars through one consistent trait: the refusal to accept defeat when others depend on us. We answered the Zephyrian distress call because that's who we are. When someone calls for help, humans respond." The presentation continued with an analysis of human military doctrine, technological development, and cultural values. Morrison explained how Earth's history of conflict had created a species that thrived on adversity and innovation rather than technological superiority. "We offer the galaxy something it has apparently forgotten," she concluded. "We offer unpredictability, creativity, and the absolute refusal to surrender when fighting for what's right. Our weapons may be primitive by your standards, but our determination is absolute." The debate that followed Morrison's presentation lasted for hours. Some delegates argued that humanity's unconventional tactics made them potentially dangerous allies. Others insisted that their victory at Zephyria proved the value of human military thinking. But the final vote was unanimous. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Council, along with an unprecedented invitation to establish a joint military training program where human tactical doctrine could be shared with other species. The aftermath of Earth's introduction to galactic civilization would reshape both human society and interstellar politics. Within years, human tactical advisors were serving with fleets throughout the galaxy, teaching advanced civilizations how to think creatively about warfare and problem-solving. The Vorth Collective, meanwhile, had retreated to the far reaches of known space. Their defeat at Zephyria had shattered their confidence in biological superiority and predictable tactics. Rumors suggested they were adapting their entire military doctrine to counter the human approach to warfare, a development that concerned many galactic military leaders. But perhaps the most significant change was in humanity itself. Earth's children had looked to the stars and found their purpose, not as explorers or traders, but as guardians willing to stand against darkness wherever it appeared in the galaxy. Commander Zara Kelthani, now serving as Zephyrian ambassador to Earth, often spoke about the transformation she had witnessed. "Before the humans arrived, we thought warfare was about technology and superior firepower. They taught us it's about determination and the willingness to never give up, no matter how impossible the odds appear." Her words became a rallying cry throughout the galaxy as other species began adopting human tactical innovations. The idea that creativity and determination could overcome technological disadvantage spread like wildfire through civilizations that had become complacent in their advanced capabilities. Admiral Morrison, now serving as Earth's first galactic defense coordinator, established training centers throughout human space where alien officers could learn what instructors called chaos doctrine, the art of winning battles through unpredictability and creative problem-solving. "The key to human warfare," she explained to a class of mixed-species military officers, "isn't our weapons or our technology. It's our refusal to accept that any problem is unsolvable. When the galaxy calls for help, we answer. When the odds are impossible, we find a way to change them. That's not human nature. That's human choice." Dr. Chun, The SETI researcher whose cultural bombardment had helped win the battle at Zephyria became director of the new Galactic Cultural Exchange Program. Her mission was to share human art, music, and literature throughout the galaxy, not as weapons this time, but as bridges between species. The Vorth were defeated by human creativity as much as human weapons, she explained to her staff. Our music and art represented ways of thinking they couldn't process. Now we can use that same creativity to build connections instead of causing confusion. Earth itself transformed rapidly as humanity embraced its role as the galaxy's unconventional defenders. Space elevators carried supplies to orbital shipyards where the next generation of human vessels were being constructed, ships that combined alien technology with human innovation in ways that continued to surprise galactic engineers. But the most important change was in human society itself. The successful mission to Zephyria had proven that Earth's children could work together toward impossible goals when the stakes were high enough. The cooperation that had enabled their galactic debut continued to drive human development in space. We answered one call for help, President Santos said in her final address before retiring from office. And, in doing so, we discovered who we really are. We are the species that responds when others need us. We are the ones who refuse to accept defeat when fighting for what's right. We are humanity, and the galaxy is safer because we answered when they called. The story of humanity's introduction to galactic civilization became legend throughout known space. It was the tale of a primitive species that achieved victory through determination and creative thinking, proving that technological advancement wasn't the only path to military success. More importantly, it was the story of beings who traveled across the galaxy to help strangers they had never met, asking nothing in return except the chance to stand against evil. In a galaxy that had grown accustomed to political calculations and tactical compromises, humanity offered something precious: absolute moral courage. The children of Earth had found their place among the stars, not as conquerors or supplicants, but as guardians willing to answer any call for help, no matter how impossible the odds might seem. And, in the cold darkness between worlds, where ancient enemies still plotted and new threats emerged from unexplored regions of space, the galaxy rested a little easier knowing that somewhere among the stars, humans were watching and ready to respond. Because that's what humans did. They answered the call.